Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Suzerain. So, let's go ahead and hop into this. I believe we already looked through, this stuff before. Let's see. Yeah, I think we already looked through most of this stuff before, so I think the only thing we really have here is, a call from Marcel Caronti. Let me get my timer started. A little too loud for my liking. I was in my office looking through the agenda for the upcoming meeting at the Ministry of Economy. The meeting was going to be about the ownership of the Big Four, the four largest companies in Sordland, Heart of Sordland, Bergia Steel, the Sordish State Corporation, and Nadam Mining Group. Some of these companies were controlled in part or entirely by the state. The others were mostly or completely privatized. I had the power to change that. The phone rang and I put the agenda down. Greetings, Mr. President. I'm sorry to disturb you before such an important meeting, but I thought now would be a good time to talk about our arrangement. I'm sure you'll agree that the support I and my network have given your administration has been nothing but beneficial. Half of the non-state media in the country has been sharing positive news about you and downplaying negative events. Our partnership has been successful so far. I'm glad you agree. Your public opinion could have nosedived were it not for us. I heard him knock on wood. On another note, I can't help but mention your tax hike, Mr. President. The increased taxes have made a substantial dent in HOS's net profits. This has hurt the backbone of the Sordish economy, but I assure you it is nothing we can't endure. Unfortunately, we had to tighten our belts wherever we could. That way of thinking is correct, but you acted wrongly. This will only serve to damage our economy in the long run. We paused for a few seconds. Out of goodwill, I will share a key piece of information. The Lotherberg Group has contingency plans if you decide to do anything rash that would disrupt their empires. You can't blame them, can you? Imagine someone trying to take your authority and personal wealth away without your consent. I don't see why we should be enemies. Exactly. If everyone plays their cards right, it will be all fine. Now, let's talk about those cards. Since the start of the campaign, you've wisely committed to a market economy. Judging by that, I'm sure you are looking into privatizing some of the companies that are currently state-owned. I believe, therefore, that privatizing both Nadam Mining Group and the Sordish State Corporation would be in both of our interests. After all, I am considering buying stocks in both companies. Privatizing both might be too much. I'll see what I can do. Think about it this way. It is another step forward in strengthening our economy. Please at least think about it. I'll be blunt. Mr. Tusk is unfit to be the spokesperson for the Lotherberg Group. His archaic thinking has only preserved a status quo that benefits himself and precious few others. It is high time something changed. I see where this is going. I want him gone. It is time the group had a proper leader. Me. Here's what I propose, a win-win situation. If you promised me a majority of shares from the privatization, he would lose considerable power, which means I could take over. You may recall that one of the terms of our agreement was that I may ask you for one favor. Well, this is it. Do you accept? Of course, a deal's a deal. Carontes always keep their word, my father said. He would have liked you. I've taken up enough of your time today. This has been a productive call. Thank you for your time, Mr. President. Thanks, Marcel. Talk to you later. After a couple of minutes, I went back to reviewing the agenda. The Supreme Court holds Governor Braun accountable. Ooh, interesting. In the groundbreaking ruling, the Supreme Court has charged Governor Braun for his implementation of the divisive resettlement order in the special zone of Bergia, targeting individuals referred to as swords of different blood. The court's decision reinforces the principle that equality and justice must prevail even at the highest levels of power. Governor Braun's removal from office and the accompanying fine demonstrate the court's commitment to upholding the rule of law and safeguarding the rights of all citizens. In a testament to the constitutional process, the court has appointed Herbert Krul, a seasoned member of the NFP, as the acting governor until the end of the term. That would explain why they were willing to do this. That's not surprising. While the court rules in favor of Ishval Ursen's argument regarding discrimination, it rightfully recognized that the Constitution already guarantees equal rights for all, rejecting his argument about the conflicts within the Constitution. The ruling emphasizes the importance of respecting the constitutional framework that safeguards individual freedoms. As Herbert Krul assumes office, it is crucial to support his leadership and provide a conducive environment for the special zone of Bergia to thrive. Together, we can move forward, upholding justice, equality, and the vision of a united Sordland. Let's see. British community in Suzerain expresses outrage and demands meaningful reform. Okay. British Democrats condemn President Rain. And Supreme Court decision falls short of justice again. Arkazian-Quinali relations, a fresh chapter. Okay, guess they're getting along again now. That's always good to hear. Refugee camps. Illegal crossings rise at Whalen border. Border police have reported an increased number of arrests as Bludish and Wezek refugees attempt to enter the country from Whalen without legal documents. However, due to our relaxed immigration policy, a large majority of skilled and educated workers had been accepted. However, it is unsure if they have had any history of crime and violence. Just because we have a somewhat relaxed immigration policy doesn't mean we wouldn't be checking for that stuff realistically. Massive protest, yep, okay. Increased support for Bludish rights in Lockhaven. I mean, I got no problem helping them out there. General Staff releases a positive statement. Earlier this week, the General Staff held a meeting in which Isof Lancia had voiced his pleasure to work under the administration. According to rumors, Lancia said the current president is a man of tradition. He is strong and he is decisive. I had worked with President Saul before. I know President Saul. He's my friend, and I know that he is proud of what President Anton has achieved. I feel like President Saul's not happy about some of my decisions, if we're completely honest here. And then, we already read this, basically, before in the newspaper. Not a huge fan of a member of the NFP being made the interim governor of Bergia until we can sort things out. Okay, let's see. Lucien Galald has requested a meeting with us. Lucien scheduled some time with me to discuss the potential political repercussions of the upcoming economy meeting. He arrived on time as usual and took his seat right across from me. Good morning, Mr. President. Lucien had dark circles below his eyes. The plethora of political developments must have been weighing on a workaholic like him. You look a bit tired. Are you getting enough sleep? I'm trying to, sir. Don't push yourself too much. I will try not to. I must say, you don't look much better. I looked at myself in a small hand mirror. Similar circles were beneath my eyes as well. I booked some of your time to pre-plan for today's meeting at the Ministry of Economy. But before going into the economic direction, I want to give you a short status update. After you and Mr. Kibner made your statement in support of Solace constitutionalism, the Supreme Court prioritized the case and quickly announced the verdict. It was very clever of you to use Solism against them. They couldn't afford to look like hypocrites, so they must have moved on it very quickly. The court ruled that Felix Braun is to be relieved from his position as governor for abusing his powers to discriminate against Sordish citizens. He is banned from serving in any political positions in the future and will be charged with a fine of 5 million Sordish Ren. The resettlements policy for Bergia are ruled to be unconstitutional and have been revoked. However, the court has also rejected Ursen's arguments about the Constitution, ruling that all citizens of Sordland are swords regardless of ethnicity and are completely equal before the law. The results received a mixed response from the Bludish community. I'd imagine so. Activists, radicals, and BFF sympathizers have condemned the ruling. However, the majority seems to recognize that justice has been served. Let's see. Thank you for informing me, Lucian. Do you have any idea on how we proceed? I don't think there's anything we need to do at this moment, sir. There is one more important detail. The seat of Governor of Bergia must be filled. Normally, the President appoints the Governor of the Special Zone directly. I'm afraid, despite Miss Morgana's protests, the court decided to take a completely different route on this. Mr. Hawker argued that a premature departure of a governor during their term is an exceptional case. They ruled that the deputy of Governor Braun will assume his duty until the end of the term. Mr. Kiebner might have played you, unfortunately. The deputy in question, Mr. Kroll, is a member of the NFP. I'm afraid the court delivered Bergia straight into the NFP's hands. I mean, not politically, though, because the reality is the Blutish community would, I can fairly confidently say, not be inclined to vote for the NFP. Well, this is very bad news. What do we do now? Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it, sir. Luckily, Mr. Krull will not be able to resume any of his predecessors' unconstitutional activities. Of course, giving such a powerful position to a far-right nationalist is still very concerning. Luckily, Miss Graf is already working on the revocation of the special zone in Bergia. We may still be able to get rid of Mr. Krull that way. However, there might be a problem with its timing. It would likely be ready after the vote for the amendments. If the vote succeeds, as we've been working for, your limited decree powers won't be enough to enact to change this grand. I'm afraid you won't be able to enact this change without the approval of the Assembly in that scenario. It'll be very hard to convince them to revoke the special zone, but with Mr. Braun, an important fundraiser for the USP, gone, the party may be willing to move against Governor Kroll. Let's see. Well, I mean, obviously we should paint Mr. Krull as a threat to the party's rule. Yeah, I believe we can take advantage of partisanship and get them behind us. Of course, that's a clever strategy, sir. Took a look at his watch. For now, let's return back to the real reason we are here, our economic direction. We need to be cautious. Any grand plans about the economy also heavily influence our political standing. We should be changing our relationship with the old guard, the oligarchs, and the opposition. As you know, this meeting will give you the opportunity to alter the ownership of the Big Four, the largest corporations in all of Sordland. We can start the process of nationalization or privatization, or we can just keep the status quo. Again, I remind you that any change will tip an already fragile balance. I personally think you should stay out of this and keep things as they are. There's no need to make new political enemies at this stage in our term, but ultimately the decision is yours. What are you leaning towards? How should we move forward? We will privatize these companies. I have to ask why. What is your intention? If we want to improve our relations with the West, we need to privatize our economy. It's true, Lispia would look very favorably on such changes in the upcoming negotiations. Arcasia would see it as a positive step toward membership in the ATO. One thing to remember is that since you've been transparent about promoting a market economy, privatization will not cost us much support. Lucian took a note in his handbook. I received a report from the Ministry of Economy that may impact your decision. Unfortunately, we have missed our government budget targets for the current quarter. The plan to change the ownership of important assets could help us generate much-needed resources to further improve economic development before the next election. It's just something to consider, as is our relationship with the oligarchs. We need to remember that they only care about their own profits. Unfortunately, we aren't on good terms with them. This situation has been obstructing some of our efforts with the economic recovery. However, if we implement a privatization plan, they would surely be delighted. Still, we need to make sure that we don't go overboard with it. If we do, we might lose our base both in the USP and among the people. Let's see. If we privatize only a part of their companies, perhaps we can get out of this unscathed. That would certainly be a wise compromise. Some of the connections indicate that there seems to be a contest for leadership in the Lothenburg group. Looks like Marcel Caronti is making moves to become the key figure. Caronti probably wants his father's seat as the head of the group, and Tusk doesn't want to let go of it. It's a significant power struggle, considering these are the heads of Sordland's two largest private corporations. If we over-privatize our state-owned companies, the Sordish State Corporation and Nidam Mining Group, it could result in the balance tipping to one side. They would fight over buying up shares and cause chaos. Since you have already made the decision to privatize, you need to be decisive in your follow-up actions. Did Marcel or Tusk contact you? I received a call from Marcel. What did he ask for? He wanted to make a deal to leave HOS untouched. That doesn't quite sound correct. He wanted us to allow him to get a majority share of SSC and Nidam Mining Group. And then I said I'd think about it. Very well. Was that all he wanted? Okay, yeah, here we go. He also wants me to give him the shares from privatization to lower Tusk's influence. As I expected, this internal conflict among the oligarchs puts us in an interesting position. Our relationship with Walter Tusk hasn't been good so far. Any move we make now has to be calculated and thought through. Very well, then it's almost time. I will inform Mr. Hall of your decision, and he will make the necessary preparations to formulate a plan. I must get back to work now. See you at the next meeting. Thank you for your time, sir. Oh, here we go. Sordish Arcasian joint drills at Urlori Air Force Base. Arcasia has been granted access to Urlori Air Force Base, or having been granted access to Urlori Air Base, has been running joint military drills with Sordish planes. The exercise is indicative of the deepening trust between our country and Arcasia following the deal, during which Arcasia also promised Sordland financial, logistical, and equipment support. Increased support for Bludish rights outside of Bergia. I got no problem with that. Okay, this is just kind of repeating the previous news. Okay, Workers' Party of Bludia condemns the Supreme Court decision. Interesting. They also called the administration to action and include their proposed changes to Articles 6 and 7 in the upcoming reforms to right the wrongs of the justice system. Walker's capitalism versus Deverex's reforms. Okay. Oh, tensions keep rising in the Markian Sea. This one's definitely important for us. According to reports from the Agnolian government, the Vogslandian fleet, which has been patrolling the Markian Sea, was directly responsible for the disappearance of two fishing vessels, a drilling ship and an oil tanker that belonged to Agnolia. Prime Minister Van Horten called the Alliance of Nations to investigate the incidents. Prime Minister Van Horten condemned Chancellor Hegel in his speech yesterday, saying the Chancellor is trying to imprison us in our homes with his show of strength, but he should know Agnolians are not scared. We are always ready to fight for our home. Yep, that's just repeating the news. BFF threatens attacks against President Rain and Kasaro Kibnir. You know what? You go after Kibnir, I won't complain. Don't come after me. Mixed reactions and protests against Supreme Court decision. Okie dokie. And Herbert Krul assumes office. What do we have up here? Rapid city growth. Wonderful. Oh, Vogsland Navy active in Markian Sea. That's not what we want to hear, although we already kind of knew about that before anyway. We got something over here for Cantana. CSP launches first 3 spy satellites. Leap in surveillance. Marking a significant leap in its surveillance capabilities, the CSP has successfully launched and operationalized its first 3 spy satellites. Equipped with advanced imaging and radar technology, these satellites represent a critical step forward in the CSP's defensive preparedness and intelligence gathering prowess. I am not going to try to pronounce those names. I would absolutely butcher them. We'll be operating in the low Earth orbit, providing a continuous and broad coverage across multiple regions of interest. For the low Earth orbit, they're not really going to be providing a ton of coverage, especially with only 3. There's going to be several hour-long blocks where you do not have coverage of parts of the planet. Of course, I assume the plan is to eventually add more and potentially push out a little bit from low Earth orbit. But yeah, also with low Earth orbit, they're only going to be able to stay up for so long. Eventually, they will come down just due to the gravitational pull and not having enough RCS to be able to maintain their orbits. Eventually. It'll be a while before they actually run out, but nonetheless, they'd eventually run out. They're designed to deliver high-resolution images for detailed intelligence analysis and incorporate advanced radar systems capable of penetrating cloud cover or darkness. This technological advancement underscores the CSP's commitment to a robust security framework and effective intelligence. Let's see. Okay, ownership changes of the major corporations. Lucien and I arrived at the Ministry of Economy. Assistants took our coats and showed us into the meeting room where Simon, Edith, Gus, and Mikhail were waiting. As soon as I entered, their chatter stopped and they stood up. After a few pleasantries, everyone but Simon took their seats. He opened his briefcase, produced a folder, and proceeded to go over some of the documents. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Ministry of Economy. Without further ado, we are, of course, here today to discuss our economic shift toward privatization. Mikhail and Edith exchanged smiles. Mr. President, before you arrived, Mikhail and Edith were expressing their delight at your decision to go down this path. Wonderful news, I'd say. I'm glad we're staying firmly on the path to a market economy. This was certainly the right decision. It will boost our economy by providing the government much-needed funds right now. We can then use these funds to increase development for the future. It's a win-win situation for sure. I'm glad we're on the same page. Certainly. Simon handed me and everyone else in the room 2 neat stacks of documents. Let's move on to how we can go about implementing a privatization plan. Please turn to page 6. Okay, title was the Sordland State Corporation. As you can see on the document, the first company up for discussion is the Sordland State Corporation. The Sordland State Corporation, or SSC for short, has been around for over half a century. Most recently, they have been handling a wide range of state construction projects. In their portfolio, they have government buildings, various infrastructure projects, state libraries, embassies, basically anything government related. Privatizing a company like this would certainly increase the government's budget. That, of course, would result in lots of opportunities for us to provide for our citizens. The funds could also be used to boost our popularity, especially with the elections approaching. Not to mention the various other areas in which we can and should spend money. However, there is one catch. The conservative majority of the USP would not like this decision at all. For them, these state companies are part and parcel of Sordland identity. If we privatize these companies entirely and sell too many shares in them, it will have consequences for us in the Assembly. Okay, what would be the effects if we fully privatize the Sordland State Corporation? We would gain tremendous amounts of money for the government. We can invest that money in future government projects, which would popularize our administration, increasing the chances for our re-election. That popularity might not make up for losing the lion's share of the conservative vote. Conservatives comprise the majority of the Assembly. If we hurt their national pride, they'll turn on us. I am against full privatization. We shouldn't make enemies at this stage. Okay, what about a minority share? It would be better than nothing, but why stop there? A minority stake won't help our government as much. We need to be decisive. On the other hand, a minority share would create less friction. This would be my preference. Okay, what about a majority share? This is certainly a very good option. The state would keep most of SSC's operations under control and the government would have lots to gain. I am leaning towards this option myself. Retaining control while increasing our budget, I don't see a downside. Okay, let's move on to the next option. Very well, please turn to page 26. Nadam Mining Group is one of the largest mining corporations in eastern Morcopa, let alone Sordland. They call themselves the leaders of the world in coal. They certainly have enough evidence to back that up. Perhaps they're not as large as SSC, but we still have a lot to gain if Nadam Mining Group is privatized. I fully support privatization of this company to any extent. Certainly a good option to gain enough capital to end the recession once and for all. I have contacts in Nadam. It is one of the most valuable corporations of the last decade. I can vouch for that. I have personal experience with the company myself. It would be a great addition to any portfolio. Okay, what about the effects of full privatization? It would be a very profitable sell. I know many people who would kill to have a portion of that company. I do think this is a good option. We should simply fully privatize Nadam along with SSC to bring in a large influx of money to the government. Mr. President, I hate to repeat myself, but fully privatizing one state-owned company, let alone two, will anger our conservative voter base. All the budget in the world won't matter if you aren't re-elected. Okay, minority share. Coupled with a minority share of SSC, this is the way to go. It would, however, be a lost opportunity. I think we should sell a majority share instead. Definitely not a bad idea at all. Okay, majority share. My preference is selling a majority share of both SSC and Nadam. It would give us the most value. I think we should go with this choice. This might still generate a backlash from the assembly and the general public. We should go for a minority share instead. Okay, I'm ready to make a decision. Sounds good. Let's go over the documents once again. I read all of Simon's documents once more, then flip to the last page. It was time to make some decisions. Okay. You know, I don't actually know what necessarily we would have to do to meet his requirements necessarily. I'm just kind of curious to see if there's any real info here. Not that I can see. Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious. So, yeah, because I don't know if I need to necessarily sell the majority of shares for both to make Karanti happy, or if selling the majority of one and a minority of the other would work, or, you know, some combination of full privatization and a minority share. I don't know. I think we're going to go minority state-owned for Sordish State Corporation. And I think we're going to go minority state-owned for both and see how that goes. I signed the document altering the ownership of the Big Four with a flourish. Simon leaned back in his chair. So, this is the path we are taking. I want to thank you, Mr. President. This decision will revitalize our economy. Although I wish we could have proceeded with privatization in a greater capacity, it is a start, certainly a step in the right direction. Partial privatization will still deal damage to our conservative voter base, but it is nothing we can't handle. I suspect that, regardless, we will lose the support of some conservatives in the Assembly, but the gains we receive will offset the losses. Make sure those gains happen. As you wish, I will not leave any stones unturned. If you will excuse me, I have to get to work immediately. There is much to be done. Lucian packed up his bag and started making his way to the entrance. This will be it for today then. I know everyone has very busy schedules. Thank you all for coming. Good work, everyone. Indeed. I put the documents in my suitcase and left the room with Lucian. Okay, we are up to -5 on the budget. So, it's a bit better. Okay, let's see. We got the Unified Education Language Act, which is just no bueno. So the Grand National Assembly advances the Unified Education Language Act, UELA, to strengthen national unity and facilitate consistent, comprehensive learning across Sordland. Section 1 of the UELA stipulates that all educational institutions in Sordland are required to conduct their teaching in the country's official language, except in the case of foreign language instruction. To offer courses in any language other than Sordish, institutions must obtain explicit approval from the Ministry of Education. Any universities, technical colleges, or other educational institutions found to be non-compliant will face a temporary suspension of operations until they apply for and receive the necessary approval. Section 2 of the UELA underscores the enforcement of the Act. Schools found to be in violation of these guidelines may face penalties, which may include reduction or withdrawal of funding. In severe cases or cases of persistent non-compliance, total shutdowns may be enforced. This enforcement mechanism reinforces the commitment to a unified language policy, ensuring a cohesive educational experience across the nation. Okay, so if we sign this, public opinion will go up by 1, the Blutish opinion of us will go down by 5, the Democratic opinion of us will go down by 3, and the Socialist opinion of us will go up by 3. On the other hand, if we veto this, the Blutish opinion of us goes up by 2, the Democratic opinion of us goes up by 1, and the Socialist opinion of us goes down by 1. In many ways, unless you're trying for a fascist run, I really feel like vetoing this just makes the most sense. If you're trying to go for a fascist run, sign it. Probably makes the most sense. But we're not going for a fascist run. So we're going to veto this, because I feel like that makes the most sense. Okay, results of the economic decision. The privatization process had begun, and as I had expected, Sordland's 2 most prominent oligarchs wanted to speak to me about it. Lucian showed Marcel Caronti and Walter Tusk into the conference room. The 2 men sat across the table from me, leaving an empty chair in between them. "Good to see you, President. It's been a while. Here, take this, a gift." He brought out a bottle of Erlori Maroon, 30-year-old. "I heard Peter say that you favor this one." "Thanks for the gift." "Anytime." Marcel burst out laughing. "Old man, you always think so small. You lack the vision to see the bigger picture." Marcel approached me and we shook hands. "It's nice to see you, Mr. President. Here, a real gift." He took a set of car keys from his pocket and gave them to me. "Come, take a look." I looked out the window. On the road leading to the palace, I saw a glittering brand new Renderfini sports car, a car that only the richest of the richest in Sordland could afford. "It's yours." "Oh, well, thank you, Marcel. I can't wait to drive it. I knew you would like it. Surely better than a bottle of whiskey. Little boy, do you think I can't do better? Me, Walter Tusk?" "Whatever you want, bribery won't work." "This is absolutely no bribe, Mr. President. It's a simple gift, that's all." "Really? A simple gift? I bet this has nothing to do with the recent privatizations. Anyway, gentlemen, please take your seats." They sat down. Lucian produced a set of documents from his briefcase. He put on his reading glasses. "So, Mr. Tusk and Mr. Caronti, President Rain is about to sell private shares in Sordland's 2 largest national corporations, and now you're here showering him with gifts. You're both clearly more skilled at business than you are at subterfuge. So tell us, why do you deserve to claim these shares before they go on the general market?" Walter cleared his throat. "President, listen. You and I, haven't been on the best of terms lately, but I want to nurture a profitable relationship between us, where we both win. These shares are very important to me. If I had them, I could do so much more for Sordland, so much more for you. You haven't even seen what I and my connections are capable of. Do you want to get re-elected? No problem. I'll make sure of it. This is my offer to you. I will do whatever it takes to make you president for another term. Doesn't that sound great? What about you, Marcel? He can't do anything. He is not capable enough to. Mr. President asked me, not you. Before you spew those big words, make sure you can actually do it, Walter. Mr. President, first off, Mr. Tusk here is lying about the extent of his influence. True, he might have command over some people in the Assembly, but what he is sitting on top of right now was built by my father, Conrath Caranti. I want to be straightforward with you. If you give me the shares, I will topple this old man, which means I will have the same influence he does over the Assembly. I can sway them as you like, but that is not all, Mr. President. Don't forget that I have something that gives me an edge over this man and his archaic ways, a powerful tool, control over the media. I can give you power over both the Assembly and the Swordish public, basically a guaranteed win. You could never, ever hope to beat this offer. You little snake. You were 20 years early to be the head of the Lothburg Group. I made the group what it is. Perhaps, but Marcel has a point. What is the decision, Mr. President? Yeah, what is it going to be? Marcel leaned forward with anticipation. Let's see. These shares will go to Marcel. What? Haven't you heard a word of what I said? It's all right, old man. You learned your place today. Thank you for the wise decision, Mr. President. I will arrange a small transfer as a personal thanks. Very well, here is the paperwork. Lucien put a stack of papers in front of Marcel. He pointed to various sections and pages in the stack of papers. You'll need to sign here, here, and here. After the papers were signed, Marcel and Walter stood up. I think we all have very busy schedules. I will take my leave now. See you later, President. I will take my leave as well. The two men packed their belongings and left the meeting room. Okay, he's a connection now. Interesting. Okay, why is this still showing the circle there? Okay, there we go. Now it cleared up. Drive-by shooting in Arvery. Okay. Privatization of Swordish State Corporation and a Dam Mining Group. Reign determined to end recession. Of course I am. CSB criticizes Rumberg and Arcasia. Okay, what do we have out here? Rumberg informs of whistleblower escape. Rumberg has informed us about an escaped whistleblower headed to Sordland. They have prematurely requested the extradition of any whistleblowers from the Rumberg, if they are to be found. Chelston Hailstone, the said whistleblower, is reported to possess highly sensitive information about a covert weapons program. Queen Beatrice Livingston's administration has demanded the immediate return of Hailstone, considering his defection as a breach of trust between the two nations. Interesting. I have 6 minutes left on my clock. I think we're going to go and end this part here, especially considering that the next thing is the assembly vote for the constitutional changes. And personally, I just feel like, you know what? Cliffhanger sounds like a great idea right about now. So I will see you all next time. Until then, goodbye and farewell.